Hello, Cleveland, and welcome to an emergency edition of the Dogland podcast. This is actually our first episode we recorded in about a month. So we did have some big Browns news that we wanted to sit down and chat about. I'm your host, Jackson McCurry, and rolling with me as always is my co-host, Anthony Jokey. Anthony, how you been, man? It's been a long month, but it's good to sit down and chat with you.
It's been a very long month, but it's also been a very short month because the time has flown by with work being crazy and whatnot. But yeah, I'm glad we got to sit down today, and we got some very good Browns news today that we're going to talk about here in a second. But it's always good to sit down with you, we've done for almost 300 episodes now, and we're only a couple away from that. So it's pretty fun.
Yeah. Almost 300 episodes, almost 5 years, both coming up on both of those milestones next week. And you said it was a short month. Anthony, we're 10 days away from the NFL draft. I know you messaged me the other day. You're like, is the draft like next week? And I'm like, yeah, it is.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, the time has just like flown by, and I've completely lost track of it, and I can't believe the draft is just like 12 days away or whatever it is. So it's pretty nuts.
It helps that the Browns don't have a first round pick, so it makes things a little easier for us this year. And compared to other years when we've had top 10 picks, top 5 picks, those couple years we had the number 1 pick, so we can kind of sit back and chill on that first night, knowing the Browns don't even have to make a pick.
Yeah, and well, maybe not necessarily. We can see what kind of wheeling dealing goes around, but I think what we've learned over Andrew Berry's first couple of drafts is we can learn to trust whatever he does, and it's nice to really not have to sit here for 6 months talking about who we're going to take in the first round and debate about it. So it's nice to kind of sit back and relax and trust the front office.
For sure. And when it comes to sitting back and relaxing and trusting the front office today, that reason could be used for cornerback Denzel Ward. It's the deal I think we've been waiting for over a year now, because we talked about it last offseason, but the Browns and Denzel Ward's reps got it done. Adam Schefter was the first to report it. It's a 5-year deal worth $100.5 million, and it also includes $71.25 million totally guaranteed in the deal. We don't know the fully guaranteed yet or the exact details, but Denzel Ward is now the highest paid corner in the history of the league. The previous high mark for a cornerback was Jalen Ramsey, who signed a 5-year, $100 million extension with the Los Angeles Rams 2 years ago, and that total guaranteed at the time was $71.2 million. So Denzel Ward has jumped Jalen Ramsey in terms of total value and total guaranteed. And Anthony, like I said, we've been waiting on this one for a while. We were kind of worried because it was very quiet when it came to Denzel Ward and the extension talks, but the Browns got it done, and they realized that Denzel Ward is not only a cornerstone of the defense, but a cornerstone of this franchise. And now they have him in the fold for the next 6 seasons, including this upcoming one.
Yeah, and I think a couple things about this is now you have quite a few cornerstones that are locked up long time. You have the quarterback, you have Denzel Ward, you have Myles Garrett, all under contract for the next several seasons, which is good because they don't have first round picks that they use to trade for the quarterback. The second thing is I think it's good we didn't really hear anything about this, any kind of contract progression talks. It was very quiet on both sides. You didn't hear anything being played out in the media or stuff like that. So the fact that they were able to quietly get this done on both sides, I kind of think that kind of speaks on Denzel's side too. I think he's a pretty quiet guy for a corner. There's a lot of corners in this league who have big personalities. I don't think Denzel has that off the field. On the field, he does. But I just think off the field, he's a rather composed guy. So I think it's good that the front office and Denzel Ward and his agents were able to get this done. And, we really didn't hear anything about it until today, until the deal was finalized.
Yeah, I mean, I know back in November when they extended Batonio and Teller, I forget who the national reporter was, but they said Denzel Ward was up next. And then we didn't hear anything about it, the rest of the season. It made it sound like they were close, like it was something that was going to get done because he's obviously been extension eligible since last offseason. But yeah, the fact that there was no like public negotiations, the fact that it was still quiet, I think just showed that both sides wanted to get it done. They weren't going to use any media tactics to try to one up each side. I think it was apparent that, Denzel wanted to stay in Northeast Ohio, although there was scuttlebutt. I think there was discussion like Denzel's been in Ohio his whole life, obviously from Nordonia, went to Ohio State, drafted by the Browns 4 years ago. Like, would he want to branch out? Much like LeBron did 12 years ago when he left Cleveland for Miami. Like, and then there was people talking about potential trade and, obviously, there was all that discussion, but the fact that they got it done and just kept it quiet and worked to hammer out a deal just goes to show that both sides wanted to get this done. They wanted to stay committed to one another, and it's a good thing that they got this done.
Yeah, it's a great deal, and I think when you look at the cornerback room now and how things are, you have Denzel Ward under contract for next 6 seasons. You have Greg Newsome under contract, under a rookie contract for the next 4 seasons. That includes his 5th-year option, which I'm sure they will pick up. You have Greedy Williams, 2 more years or 1 more year?
He's entering his final year.
Okay. So, the cornerback room, at least your top 2 guys are locked up for at least 4 years now. And today's NFL, you need a lot of corners, especially when you look at the receivers in the division. You look down at Cincinnati, who won the division last year. They made it to the Super Bowl. They have some very good receivers down there, and you need some good corners. And, the Browns defense played well against them both games. They were able to win both games. The second one, you can talk about that. But, they went down there that first one and beat them. So, this defense has had success against them. Denzel Ward has had quite a bit of success against Cincinnati down there. So, having these guys locked up long term is just really going to, keep things rolling for this defense, especially in the secondary. And, there's plenty of good receivers in the league and in this draft too. So if you have 2 good top corners, you're in really good shape, and the Browns have that, and under contract for at least 4 years now.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, you got Newsome and Ward locked up for the next at least 4 seasons. Denzel's technically 6, and Newsome's got at least 3, probably 4 if he stays on his trajectory, because he showed some definite promise as a rookie. Troy Hill's on the final year of his deal. Greedy Williams on the final year of his deal. We have AJ Green for a couple more years, and it won't shock me if they draft a corner in the late rounds of the draft to continue to develop guys, because they've done a pretty good job with that secondary. Joe Woods and Jeff Howard, I think he's the secondary coach. They've done a good job of molding these corners into what fits their scheme. AJ Green's prime example, get a guy that was undrafted, and now he emerged last year in spots because of injuries or COVID, and he's showing some potential. So, even if Greedy and Troy Hill both leave the room going forward, I feel confident that they'll be able to plug guys in, whether it's in free agency or the draft, or if they pull off a trade for somebody to fill out that cornerback room.
Yeah, I could certainly see, a draft pick heading to the cornerback room. There's still plenty of opportunities to add players, whether it be still left in free agency, whether it be the draft, undrafted free agents, a trade. There's still plenty of opportunities, but in terms of along the pass rusher line of which might be the motto of this podcast, you can never have enough pass rushers. I think in today's NFL, you could probably say the same about corners because of how good the receivers are everywhere across the league. So, corner is another position that you just can't have enough talent at. And if there's a way to add to that, I'm positive that Andrew Berry and company will be able to do that. We just have to wait and see what that is over the course of the next couple of weeks with the draft coming up.
For sure. And Anthony, you talked about Ward's success against the Cincinnati Bengals during his career. His success across the AFC North since he's been drafted has been pretty damn good. I mean, you look at the numbers, in 18 career games, he's got 63 solo tackles, 7 interceptions, and 24 pass breakups. But he's also had 2 pick sixes, both against the Cincinnati Bengals. I think 2019, he had one against Andy Dalton in his final year. And then last year he had the 100-yard pick six when the Browns went down to Cincinnati and blew him out. So, and he's also got 2 interceptions against the Ravens and 2 against Pittsburgh. So, I mean, Denzel gets up for these big time division games. So he knows how much, and obviously growing up in Northeast Ohio, he knows how meaningful the Browns games are against the Ravens, the Bengals, and the Steelers. And the stats back it up that he performs at his best in these division games. So I think he understands, like, to get to where the Browns want to go, he's got to shut down these receivers. And so far throughout the duration of his career, he's done just that. I mean, you think back to his first game against Pittsburgh, it was a rainy, muddy, like windy game.
I was there.
You were there. That was the tie.
It was a tie, yes.
He picked off Roethlisberger twice. I think he was covering Antonio Brown, if I'm not mistaken, because I think Brown was still there. And he picked off Roethlisberger twice in his very first NFL game. So Ward knows how much these division games mean and how much those rivalries mean towards the Browns and to the fan base as well.
Yeah, and you've heard him talk about it too. So his performance against the divisional opponents has been wonderful. You always love a player who can rise up to those occasions. He's so good as a player. Where teams don't want to throw to his side, but if they go to the other side, now you got Newsome on that side too. So, he's just a very good player. Obviously people will be concerned about, him missing games here and there. And, if he misses a couple games every year during regular season, that's probably fine as long as he's there for the playoffs, as long as the Browns make it. Especially with the teams playing 17 games now. If he's there for 15 to 17 or 14 to 17, I think that's fine. And you can say that for everybody on the roster, in my opinion. But, he's been so good against divisional opponents, and you hope that trend can continue.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm glad you brought up his durability, because that's always been the knock on Denzel since he entered the league. 2018, it was actually as a whole. He missed 3 games his rookie year, 4 games in his second and third year individually. And then last year he missed 2. And, it's been mainly like hamstring issues. He had the stinger to his neck, I think, his rookie year during the preseason, but he ultimately didn't miss any games at the beginning of the year. I think he also had a concussion. It was either his rookie year or his second year. Durability's been the one knock on Denzel, but I think last year he kind of silenced the critics. He missed 1 game because of injury and 1 game because of COVID. Do you think that's the biggest knock on him so far and going forward, that he just needs to stay healthy and durable, obviously through the length of this next contract?
Yeah, because Jack, I honestly can't point anything on the field that I would knock him for. So I think durability is the biggest thing. We've discussed on here many times about how about availability as being the best thing a player can have on the field. So as long as he could stay healthy, as long as he could play, like I said, 15 to 17, 14 to 17 games, I think the Browns defense will be just fine. Because like I said, I honestly can't pinpoint one thing on the field that I would criticize of him. For a quarterback who might be a touch shorter than others, he does a very good job of defending some of the bigger guys. He's very good in his technique. He's very good at what he does. So, to him, I guess you could make the argument just out of default, his biggest thing is the durability. Based on that, he has missed some games. So as long as he's able to get on the field, he'll be just fine.
Yeah, for sure. And like, I think the one knock on him, and obviously, like some people are pointing it out, he doesn't force enough turnovers per se. He doesn't cause enough turnovers. He only has 10 career interceptions.
Well, they quit throwing to his side.
Right, and that's the thing.
That's the big thing.
Like I just pointed out before we started recording, there was a comparison between him and J.C. Jackson, who was the top corner in the free agency market. And J.C. Jackson got $40 million guaranteed, but he has, I think, 15 more career interceptions. His QB rating when targeted is like 26 points below Denzel Ward's. Ward's was like 56. J.C. Jackson is 30 something. I mean, people want to say, oh, well, he doesn't put up the stats, but like you said, teams avoid throwing it at Denzel Ward because he shuts corners down or wide receivers down. He's one of the best cover corners in the league. Yeah, it doesn't translate wise statistically, and he doesn't get enough respect in terms of all pro votes. He's been to the Pro Bowl twice in 4 years, but he doesn't get the recognition when he's up for all pro. But like, I think teams around the league, if Denzel Ward would have been a free agent, probably would have gotten a big time payday. Not saying he didn't, J.C. Jackson shouldn't have, because he definitely should have. He should have got more than he got. But I just think it's funny that like people want to say, well, Denzel Ward doesn't have enough interceptions, or he doesn't do this, or he doesn't do that. But it's like the numbers in the film speaks for himself. Like he's been consistently one of the best cover corners in the league. And even Jalen Ramsey tweeted, I was waiting for someone to join the $100 million club, and Denzel Ward deserved it. So, like, obviously, he's respected amongst his peers around the league as one of the best corners in the league.
Yeah, I was trying to look up the stats really quickly here from last year. So, opponents threw against the Browns 576 times last year. Do you want to take a guess how many of those targets were against Denzel Ward?
I would say out of how many?
It was 576.
I would say he probably had 75 to 80.
You almost nailed it. He was targeted 71 times, which is 12% of all throws were thrown his way. Out of all those targets, 44 of those were receptions. Wow. So, to have 3 interceptions on 71 targets, I would say that's pretty decent last year. PFF has his grade at a 77 for last season. So, I mean, if you're only targeted 12% of the time last year, I think that's pretty good. So, teams just didn't throw at him. And, I think you could just ignore the turnover thing because how little teams are targeting him.
For sure. You mentioned, like, you talk about the defensive core being locked up. You talk about the Browns core as a whole, and, there's the knock with Andrew Berry with analytics and blah, blah, blah. To put in perspective, and Hayden Grove tweeted this out, so shout out to Hayden of Cleveland.com. You got Deshaun Watson locked up through 2026, Nick Chubb through 2024, Amari Cooper through 2024. Now, granted, there's early outs in those deals that the Browns could get out of, but technically they're through 2024. Myles Garrett through 2026, Ward now through 2027, Joel Bitonio through 2026, Wyatt Teller through 2025, and Greg Newsome through 2026. So you have 2/5 of your offensive line, your starting corners, your starting running back, your starting wide receiver, your future Hall of Fame pass rusher, and your franchise quarterback all locked up at least through the next 4 or 5 years. So the foundation is there. I trust Andrew Berry and company to fill in around those guys, but the foundation is set for the Browns to go on multiple Super Bowl runs, Anthony, now on both sides of the ball, offensively and defensively.
Yeah, it really is. And you hope that everybody can stay healthy. You hope that players will be available and not facing suspensions. You just hope that they can put it all together. The talent on this team you could probably put up against any other team in the NFL. The thing with the Browns is it has to translate to on the field. It has to translate from being on paper to on the field. And, you saw it translate in 2020. You didn't see it translate last year, mainly from quarterback play. But you need to see it translate this season from paper onto the field if it's going to work. If it doesn't work, you're going to have some serious conversations. But I think that the talent on this team is there for them to win. They just have to go out there and prove it.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, at the end of the day, they look great on paper. What it comes down to is coaching, execution, and staying healthy. I think those were the three things last year that really hampered the expectations of the team last year. The injuries, obviously on both sides of the ball, the execution on offense, because defensively the second half of the year they were executing and playing at the top 10, top 5 level that I think a lot of us thought they were going in, that they could be going into the season. And then coaching. I think Stefanski struggled at times with play calling last year. Granted, he was limited, obviously, with quarterback play and the injuries that were surrounding the team. And then I think Joe Woods, the first half of the year, was not doing as well as we thought he would. And I think the second half, they turned things around. So, I think we all have high expectations for the team. We'll see how it goes. But I think those are the three biggest factors going into 2022.
Yeah, I think you're right. There's still some opportunity here to add some more players to this team to look even better on paper. And, as we've just talked about here, it just has to translate now. And if it translates, you're looking at the team that can win, 12 games or so, as long as everybody's available. And that's a discussion for another day. But, there's certainly enough talent on this team to win. So we just have to go out there and wait and see if it happens or not.
Definitely. And, you mentioned adding more pieces. We're still waiting on Jarvis Landry's decision, Jadeveon Clowney's decision. We got the draft coming up in 10 days. So they're going to add more pieces there at pick 44, 78, 99. Hopefully some guys that can make big impacts at some point during 2022 and beyond. They also made a couple roster moves while we were recording. The team re-signed defensive tackle Sheldon Day, which I know our guy, Jack Duffin, who, for those that don't know, Jack left the Dogland to take a role with the OBR, and we're very happy for him. He's been saying that he thought Sheldon Day was going to come back. So Sheldon Day's back, adds another piece to the D-tackle room. They also signed defensive end Stephen Weatherly, who played in 15 games last year. And like we always say, Anthony, can't have enough pass rushers.
Correct.
He was effective this last couple years. His last 4 years between Minnesota, Carolina, and Denver, he had 27 pressures in 2018, 29 pressures in 2019. He fell off a little bit in 2020 with 12, but came back with 21 pressures in 2021 between Minnesota and Denver. So more defensive end depth. I still would expect Jadeveon Clowney to come back at some point, adding another pass rusher to the mix, but depth is never a bad thing. And if you have Chase Winovich, Stephen Weatherly, some guy they add in the draft, or Porter Gustin to back up Clowney and Myles Garrett, that's not a bad thing to have at the position.
No, not at all. And you're right. And I want to ask you, out of those players that you mentioned, Landry and Clowney, and who's the other guy? I guess Njoku.
Yeah. Well,
see if they get that deal done, but he'll be on the team no matter what.
Yeah.
So I would imagine Clowney is probably the answer to this, but the guy you most care to re-sign would be Clowney, I would assume.
Yeah, I mean, I would like Landry back, but at the same time, I want this team to become more explosive offensively, and this is no slight or any negative towards Jarvis Landry, but we need to get more explosive. Landry's not that guy, and he never was that guy, unfortunately, but if they bring him back, it's a great presence to have in this team. He's obviously been one of the catalysts of the turnaround the last 4 years. I know money's the hang up as far as from what I've heard, but I would think the longer it goes, the more likely Landry's back. But Clowney is just something we need because outside of Myles Garrett, we really don't have anything like Winovich. and Weatherly and some other guys, and even a guy we had in the draft, I don't think could together combined could make up for what Lane or Clowney did last year on the defensive front. I mean, he was good, he was effective, he was durable. Like, it's what we needed opposite Myles Garrett, and I just hope that they can work out a deal if they haven't already, and he's just kind of playing the waiting game and doesn't want to report for OTAs. Like, you don't have to, actually, since it's not mandatory, but I think Clowney is so much more important to this team than Landry.
Yeah, I think so. And I think you saw that last year with the success that Myles Garrett had on the other side of Clowney. And, you could attribute Clowney's success last year to having Myles Garrett on the other side too. So I think it'll be a good thing for both teams if they can get something done with Clowney. So hopefully that is the case.
Oh, for sure. For sure. Anything else you want to discuss before we wrap things up?
I don't think so. I think we're all good for right now.
Yep. Because we've covered everything, and there's still no Baker Mayfield trade, so we're still kind of waiting on the edge of our seats for that one. So who knows when that's coming? But
I'm not on the edge of my seat. I just want it to happen and be over with.
Yeah. Since we're bringing it up, did you listen to the podcast last week?
No. But
you've seen the quotes.
I've seen a few of the quotes. Yeah.
Since we haven't talked about Baker, what's your thoughts on all that? And like, from the quotes you've seen, like, what do you think about how he's behaving right now? We haven't talked in a month, so we might as well air everything out.
For somebody who is going out basically on job interviews to apply for other teams at the moment, this is the equivalent of having those one or two bad tweets on your Twitter account that somebody can go look up while you're interviewing for a job. Well, I would say Baker probably has at least a dozen of those right now. And I think that, the more he talks, the more it hurts himself at the moment. So, I just think he continues to and the longer he opens his own mouth, I think the longer this thing is going to go on. And maybe that's the way he wants it to go, so the Browns will just cut him. I don't know if they're going to do that or not. I would think at some point there's, you don't want him to show up to OTAs or anything. I'd be curious to see if he does, if he's still under contract with the Browns at that point.
OTAs start tomorrow. We're recording this on Monday. It starts on Tuesday.
I guess we'll find out.
God. Can you imagine?
I don't think he would, but it would certainly be something if he did. I don't see it, though.
Yeah.
And to all the talk of, why not play Baker Mayfield until Deshaun Watson's impending suspension is up, I'm not for that. That would just be a nightmare and something the Browns need to avoid.
Yeah, I think, well, with them adding Jacoby Brissett and Josh Dobbs to the QB room, I just think they know they're moving on from Baker. It's just a matter of when. We know that the Panthers are the most interested. I guess there's still a chance the Seahawks could trade for him. I know the Lions have been connected. The Buccaneers have been connected. I don't know how the Buccaneers would even pull it off with Baker's guaranteed money. The Browns would have to eat a big chunk of that. But like you, he's going out and talking is not doing him any favors at this point. And his people need to realize that and tell him that. Now, Baker's going to do what he wants. That's what he's always done. He's going to run his mouth regardless of the situation. But yeah, that interview and then saying the Browns told me one thing, then they did another. I don't know if Baker and his reps fully listened to what the Browns said, because they said, you're our guy, but we're going to explore our options. And that's what they did. They went and tried to get Russell Wilson. Didn't happen. And then Deshaun Watson became available. And then when the criminal cases were cleared, they obviously went full go and went in full pursuit to get him. But I just don't think Baker and his people were more hurt that they went down and met with him. If they had not met with him and then just pulled off the trade, I don't think they would have been as hurt. But I don't know. I just like Baker. I don't understand. Like, I understand it to a degree why he's upset, but at the same time, it's like you have to be professional. I mean, you look at how Jimmy Garoppolo has acted the last 2 years, how Sam Darnold has approached things in Carolina with them pursuing every quarterback under the sun. Like, those guys are handling it professionally. Baker's not. So, like, it's Baker, I just thought he would be more mature about this. But at the same time, looking back at his history, I guess I was a bit too naive to think that he was going to grow up.
Yeah, or like when it was Alex Smith and Kaepernick,
Yeah.
that whole situation played out. So
Alex Smith and Mahomes.
Right.
There's been countless things.
And the NFL is a business, and if you're not trying to constantly improve, you're going to get left behind. And the Browns determined that, they look at the other quarterbacks in this division, in the AFC, excuse me, especially after, the Russell Wilson trade and the emergence of some of these rookies like Justin Herbert and whatnot. So you have to, they thought they had to improve the position, and that's what they went ahead and did. And like I said, the NFL is a business, and if the Browns aren't constantly trying to improve, they're going to get left behind, as they had been left behind for the last umpteen years. So they're finally out in the forefront of, constantly trying to improve. And, unfortunately, it came at the cost of Baker Mayfield this time.
For sure. So as we wrap things up, you guys can follow Anthony on Twitter at Anthony Joki. That's Joki. You can follow me on Twitter at Jack McCurry08, and you can also follow us on Twitter at The Dogland. Please go give us a follow. We're within 200 of 2,000. We'd be awesome to make that happen before the draft. And just thank you guys for always listening to us. This is episode 298, so we are 2 away now from 300. And next week, we should hit that goal with the draft coverage, as well as our 5-year anniversary, which Anthony, you started this about 5 years ago at this time, right before the 2017 draft. And that's when things started pointing upward for the Cleveland Browns, even though we were embarking on the 0-16 season right beforehand.
Yeah, I still don't know how we made it through that first season. That was pretty impressive. There have been numerous people that have joined the show. I know you've been my partner on the show for the longest. We've had incredible guests over the years. I would hate to try to name them all off, because I know I would forget somebody, and I wouldn't want to do that. But
just be like me and always miss Jared Mueller, even though he's been on the show probably more than anybody.
I mean, between him or Stephen Thomas, I think it's got to be pretty close to
right.
Who's been on the most, or Tony Serino. I know he's been on quite a bit.
That's that fella that covers Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
We'll have to get him on during the off season to catch up on Mitch Trubisky fever.
There's been quite a bit. We've been lucky to have like Jake Trotter on. We've obviously we've had oh goodness gracious, like I said, we've had Jeff Rich on. We've had
Mark Schofield.
Yep,
Jake
we've
Burns,
had Mark on a couple. Jake.
Yeah.
Jeff Lloyd.
Jeff Risdon. I mean, we've had pretty much anybody that covers the Browns or that has covered our opponent that week or whatever. Like, we've pretty much had everybody on, and I'm sure we will add to that guest list during the off season and next season as well.
Yeah, we've had obviously Jack Duffin on. Next time it will be as a member, not being a part of the Dogland. We've had Shane Carter on a couple times for Kevin Massar a couple times. So I mean, there's just been so many that we've had on. So like, I know we're forgetting people, and I'm sorry, but it's been quite a ride for the last 5 years.
For sure, and let's make it another 5 more.
Hopefully we get a Super Bowl within these 5. That would be nice,
amazing. That would probably be the point where we just like we would walk off, be like, we won our Super Bowl.
We could retire after that Super Bowl postgame show and be done.
For sure, man. But as we get on out of here, guys, we thank you for listening and sticking with us, and hopefully you continue to stick with us. And until next time, as we get on out of here, as always, go Browns.